Hi, I'm Sam, and welcome to my podcast, The Shoogly Stitch, where I talk all things knitting, spinning, and fibercraft related. So welcome back. We seem to have a few new people since the last time I posted, so I'm just going to do a quick little reintroduction of myself. My name is Sam, and I live in the central belt of Scotland with my fiance and our Dachshund Poppy. I've been knitting since I was about 10 years old, and I took up spinning a couple years ago, and this is where I share all my knitting, spinning, crochet projects, anything related to making using yarn and or fiber. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed recently and left comments. It always brightens my day when I see notes from you all, so thanks. So getting into it today, I am going to do a WIP audit, or a work in progress audit. Now, if you know me, you may have realized that I'm a bit of a chaotic maker. I'm not sure if it comes across that way on video or not, but I am inclined to start lots of things and not necessarily finish them in a timely manner. That's not to say that I don't finish projects, but I do tend to have a lot of things on the go at once. I am also someone who is easily tempted by test knits and who often thinks that gift knits are a good idea, so sometimes I'll start a project and then it'll go on hold for a little while I work on something that is more deadline based. So I thought what would be interesting today is to take a look back at all my works in progress and kind of decide whether they're going to stay works in progress, whether they are going to get frogged, or what I'm going to do with them. This isn't all my works in progress, which is potentially concerning in and of itself, but this is all of the things that have kind of been on hold for a while. So they haven't been worked on recently, I haven't talked about them particularly recently, and they just need reviewing to see if they are actually going to get done. A little bit of admin. You can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as The Shoogly Stitch. If you have questions about anything I'm working on, there are details in the description box below, and I've also put in timestamps if you want to skip along to whatever is more interesting for you. Without further ado, I think we'll just jump into the first thing. These are not in any particular order. They kind of are just as I remembered them, or as I found them as I was digging through my various baskets and containers of projects that are stashed in places around the house. Oh, and I'll quickly mention what I'm wearing. This is the Metamorphic sweater by Andrea Mowry. There are more details on my Ravelry and in previous episodes of this podcast, but this is all in my own hand spun, and it's using fiber from Sealy McWheely and John Arbin. It's my only hand spun sweater so far, although I do have a couple more sweater quantities in stash that are ready to be knit up whenever I get the chance. So my first work in progress is the Lucia Pullover, or Lucia Pullover? I don't know. It's a Sari Nordland pattern, and it is absolutely gorgeous. This is 100% going to get finished. There's no question about that. The main reason that it's been on the needle so long, well, firstly, I have had a long project that kind of took up a lot of the year that required a lot of attention, which was a Shetland lace shawl. And so when I wasn't working on that, I wanted to work on something that was quite simple. And this is not simple. It's not hard. Like, I can do it, but it requires attention on every single row. And that's because it is a cabled pattern. As you can see, there are lovely kind of stitch patterns that you would find in Japanese stitch Bibles. And so it's cables, it's lace, and it's all twisted stitches for the most part, as far as the knit stitches on the cables. So that means that there is obviously cabling on every other row, and there is also, like, even the plain rows, you still have to knit twisted stitches. So it's not something that I can just do without paying attention or without having a pattern out. I need to have my pattern out or my iPad out so I can look at the pattern, look at the chart while I'm working on this. And I did time myself. It's got to the point, because I'm at the bit where you work in the round for the body, it's got to the point that each row is pretty long. and I time myself and each row is like 12 minutes. So it's just kind of hard to get myself to pick it up when I know that each row is going to take that long. It definitely will get done. This was originally a test knit, but all you had to have done for the test was the yoke and one sleeve. So that got done in like a month or 6 weeks, and then the rest of it has just not been something that's happening quickly. However, once I'm done with the body, I've done everything else. So I've picked up for the collar. It calls for a double folded collar, but I decided I didn't want to do that just because of the weight of the yarn. This is a worsted weight. It's Vilcolana's Peruvian Highland wool. It's a lovely wool. It's a lovely yarn. I'm really happy with the feel of it. I think it'll be nice and cozy for winter, so I probably should just get it done because I do want the finished project. And it's like kind of one of those pieces, like to be able to say, oh yeah, I made that. Like it looks quite impressive, I think. So yeah, this is definitely going to be getting finished, but I just really need to kind of devote the time to it. I should probably make myself do like 2 rows a day or something, and then it wouldn't even be that bad. Just have like that one thing to tick off, like get your 2 rows done of this, and then I can work on whatever else I feel like. That would be the sensible thing to do. So that might be how I take this on going forward. But yeah, it's just a matter of making time for it. This has been in progress since February, but as I said, most of it like happened within probably by the end of March, and then it's just been bits and pieces ever since. The next project I think I showed once and worked on it for maybe like a few weeks and haven't touched it since, and it's the Argil Tanktop. And this is a pattern that was originally in Pom Pom magazine. It is meant to be a tie front tank top with stripes that go one way on the body and another way across kind of the bust. It's a cute pattern. I like it in theory, but I do think I'm going to frog this, and that's mostly because I got this far. There aren't even any needles on it anymore, and I was heavily adapting it because I didn't really want the tie front, so I should probably just find a different pattern instead of trying to adapt it so heavily. The yarn I was using is the Border Mill Alpaca Rose 4-ply, which is this blue, and it's really lovely and soft and drapey. And then also the Fiber Company Meadow, again, really soft, really beautiful yarn. So nothing wrong with the yarn choice, and I don't hate them together, but I don't really have a strong desire for this project. And also it is basically the middle of winter now, and I live in Scotland, so I'm not going to have any need for a knit tank top anytime soon. So I think I'm probably just going to frog this and either find something better to use the yarn for, or maybe get an additional amount of either of these yarns. Like there's quite a lot of yardage on this Fiber Company Meadow skein. It's nearly 500 meters per skein. And it would be kind of suitable for a summer-ish project, as well as being a light fingering weight or kind of a heavy lace. So it's 40% merino wool, 25% llama, 20% silk, and 15% linen. So it's a really interesting, kind of suitable for summer combination, but I only have the one skein of it, so I kind of just need to decide like what's the best use of that one skein. Is it that I should just buy another one and then have enough to make a t-shirt or a tank top? Yeah, not certain. And then same thing with the Fiber Company, or no, the Border Mill Alpaca Rose. A really lovely yarn. It is 50% alpaca and 50% rose fibers, so it's really soft. It's one of those things that I bought at a yarn show because I couldn't resist how soft and drapey it was, but it's kind of a tricky amount to use. So if anyone has suggestions for what I can do with 350 meters of a fingering, really drapey, 50% rose, 50% alpaca yarn, I am totally open to that. I think maybe I could do some kind of scarf thing. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't tend to wear super tiny scarves though, so it's a tricky amount to use. Again, maybe I should just buy more of it, and then I would have enough for like a tank top or a drapey t-shirt next year. Or I could use both of them together in a different pattern, but yeah, I feel like I'd prefer them not striped and just like one of each color, to be perfectly honest. So this is definitely a frog for me, and it's just because I didn't get very far. Don't love the project. Like, might as well just get one thing out of the WIP pile. Next up is Funfetti Scarf, which is a pattern by Maxim Sear. I think he's Max the Knitter on Instagram. And this is a really fun intarsia scarf pattern. It kind of reminds me of the Sophie scarf in that it's garter stitch and got I-cord borders and increases along one side and not the other. I think that's how the Sophie scarf goes. But then you have these really fun intarsia squares. And I got this far and then again kind of had other projects take my focus. I'm definitely going to finish this. This is the first time I've used intarsia, and I'd say it's a pretty good project for learning intarsia in that the joins are all squares, so they're pretty easy to do. The pattern itself, not overly difficult, like the base pattern, and then you just have some charts to follow. But if you've done any kind of color work before, or even if you haven't, they're very kind of straightforward charts. They're just blocks of color. And it's just fun, and it's a good way for me to use up this rainbow pack of yarn. I think this is a, it's Yak Sock from the Little Grey Girl, who's an indie dyer based in the UK. And then the gray base is from Islair Yarn, and it's called Easedale, and it's another really drapey alpaca blend. It's 75% or 70% alpaca, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. So it's really beautiful and soft, like lovely close to skin texture. This is a WIP, I don't know, probably for the same reason that my Lucia one is. Like, it's not overly hard. It's probably a lot simpler than the Lucia one in that you only need to pay attention to kind of when you're changing color and then how many rows you need to do in each of these colors for the blocks. So there is still a chart to follow, but it's not the same kind of intense. Pay attention to every single stitch. You know that it's going to be garter stitch and then a few color changes. It just hasn't been a priority, probably because I had been doing a few different like test knits and things like that. So yeah, I will definitely pull this one back out at some point. I don't know, I'm not like in a huge rush for the finished product. Sometimes I do things because I want the end product and the knit is kind of a pain, whereas sometimes I do things because the knit is fun to do and then I find them a bit harder to wear. So this might lean towards the second category. So do, for me, shawls tend to lean in that second category. I've done the Stephen West knit along before, and a fun process for sure, but I don't tend to wear the actual finished project very much. This will be a little bit more wearable because it will be a smaller finished object, so it doesn't actually get too wide. So I'm definitely going to finish this. Now that I've got it out, it kind of makes me want to start working on it again, so maybe I'll try and leave this one out for a little while and see what I can get done. I think that's going to be the case with a lot of these. Like, once I start looking at them again, it makes me kind of excited about the project. Would definitely recommend the pattern. It's pretty easy to follow. Definitely a good first intarsia pattern because like gauge doesn't matter too much and it's not a sweater. Yeah, pretty low risk. So that is the Funfetti Scarf. And this one I started back in April as well. Okay, this is another April cast on. So I seem to have gone through a period where I was like, let's cast on all the things, cast on everything you want, all the dopamine from all the new projects. And then I haven't touched them since, which is a questionable choice, but that's how we go sometimes. So this project is the Thicksgiving Socks by Summerlee Knits. I'm also going to complete these. Again, I don't know if I'm going to do them anytime soon. They probably won't take that long because they're basically a DK to worsted weight sock. But again, they just haven't been a priority. When I knit socks, it tends to be a like very vanilla sock. Something that I can do to keep my hands busy that I don't actually need to pay attention to. These aren't particularly difficult, but I was wanting to keep track of like how many rows I was knitting just so I could keep each like sock the same, or the second sock the same. I tend to knit my socks 2 at a time, so that is a little bit different for me to knit just one of these at once. I'm just using up some of my sock yarn stash, and it's using 2 different sock yarns held double, and I'm very much going to run out of one of these colors, so I'm definitely going to have to switch to a different one. But yeah, these were just kind of meant to be a stash busting sock, And I also wanted some cozy socks to have around the house for when it's cold in the winter. My normal wool socks are warm enough on their own, so I think it would be super fun to have like extra warm, squishy, ribbed wool socks to be extra cozy. So again, like a project that is going to get finished eventually. I just like wasn't super excited about the finished project, and there were things that I wanted more. So that's why these haven't been completed either. The next project is something I don't think I've actually shown on the channel, and it is a Cumulus Tee by Petite Knit. So here it is. This is very much a like kind of out of character purchase for me as far as a yarn color, but I pretty much just saw it and loved it and wanted to have it. I bought this when I was at home visiting family for the summer from my like local yarn store at home, which is called Purl 2 Walla Walla. So I started this when I was at home, and the yarn is called Pearls Before Wine Grand Reserva. So it's their in-house hand-dyed yarn, and they name all the bases after different types of wine because Walla Walla is really known for wine. There's over 100 wineries in the valley. So this is a fingering weight yarn. It is 70% wool, 30% silk, singles yarn. So I wouldn't use it for something that was going to get a ton of friction or something that had like sleeves where I was going to rub through the elbows. But I'm hoping that a Cumulus Tee is kind of light enough and kind of got enough ease that it's not going to rub too much. I have got to the part where, yeah, this is just knitting in the round now. So I've done the whole raglans, v-neck, the raglan and v-neck part, and I've split for the sleeves already, and I've done about 2 inches in the round. So it's a really easy stockinette project at this point in time. It's just that I have a few of those type of projects on the needles, and I'm not going to probably want this until it's a little bit warmer. Although in Scotland, like, it will be a good layering piece, so I could probably wear it anytime that I finish. This is what the yarn looks like and the balls. I didn't have my skein winder with me, so they're hand wound into balls. And yeah, it's just really fun. The color is also called Bee Devil, which to me is funny because my high school mascot was the Blue Devils, Walla Walla High School Blue Devils, so this is clearly kind of named after that. The colors of the school colors were blue and white. Kind of a fun nostalgia knit. It was also, this is what my grandma got me for my birthday. I picked it out, but she bought it for me. She also knits. She's who helped teach me to knit when I was younger. So all in all, like a really fun project for multiple reasons. So I definitely will finish it, but just because it's more of a summery project, it hasn't had my focus lately. But it's really soft and cozy. That's another reason it's good for this t-shirt. It's soft enough to be next to skin for sure. Alright, my next project is one that I think I shared maybe in the very first episode of this show and then haven't touched since then. And it is called the Ferda Sweater or the Ferdagenser, and it's by Pickles Oslo. I am doing this on size 3.5mm needles, and I'm using some Scandinavian yarn and some Jamieson's of Shetland yarn. So this is using Hillesvåg, pronunciation is going to be horrible, Hillesvåg Solje and Hillesvåg Vilje, I think, which is the grey and the white. And then the black is Jamieson's of Shetland Spindrift, and the yellow is Tuku Wool Fingering. This was something I started as kind of a stash buster, so because it uses 4 different colors, you don't need as much of each color. I don't actually know if I have enough to finish this project. I'm pretty sure I don't have enough of the Tuku wool. It's here in the bag. That looks like a very tiny ball. Same with the black. That's definitely not enough, but I know I can order more of the Shetland Spindrift. I probably do have enough of the gray and the cream, so it's good from that respect. And yeah, the main reason I put this down is because I had other things. I think I had worked on this, and then I had a few test knits that I was working on, or a test knit and a sample knit, and then the big Shetland project, which again, for any of these things that take a little bit more attention, is the main reason that I haven't worked on them all year. I do plan to finish this. I think I got pretty far along. Like, it's a pretty straightforward colorwork raglan sweater. There are short rows in the back, so it should fit fairly well. I will say it doesn't have the best size range as far as size inclusivity, which I maybe wasn't paying as close of attention to back when I started this as I am trying to now. I'm pretty sure it's not even on the right size needles because I probably needed them for a different project. So yeah, another thing that'll be picked back up eventually. I probably need to make sure that I like finish all these works in progress before I start anything new. Or certainly before I start anything that's like takes attention and is new. I think I can start, I'm gonna tell myself I can start a new like kind of mindless stockinette knit once I finish my zipper sweater. But as far as things that need attention, like no starting any new colorwork sweaters until I finish the existing colorwork sweaters is probably a good plan of action. I do like it. Like, it's a fun color combination, and I think it'll be a really striking graphic like look. So yeah, it'll be a fun finished object. And it wasn't overly difficult. Like, it's a very memorizable stitch repeat. That's all positive. I just need to pull it back out, which is the story with all of these things. I just need to pull it back out and stop starting all the new things. The problem is all the new things are what give me dopamine and instant gratification because it's very exciting to start new projects and not so exciting to pick up old projects. So yeah, I think when I feel like I should work on something, that is more likely to make me not work on it because I feel like I should. And who likes to do what you feel like you should? Okay, my next project is something I know for a fact has not made it on the podcast. And I think that's because I started these in 2021. I mentioned that I have a problem with wanting to make people things. Or wanting to give people things. And in 2021, I was going home for Christmas for the first time since COVID. So I hadn't seen my family in 2 years. I'd been home for Christmas 2019, and then obviously COVID happened in March 2020, and so the first time I went and saw everyone again was in Christmas 2021. So I, of course, got it in my head that I was going to make something for all my family members, including my immediate family, who I have 3 siblings, my parents, and then my grandparents was where I kind of drew the line, and I have a lot of grandparents. Just due to various family dynamics. And I was making things for my partner's family. All that to say, these got started before I got that crazy idea in my head. I managed to get most of those Christmas projects done, to be honest. It's quite impressive, if I do say so myself. And then these basically just never got picked back up again after I had finished making all those gift projects. There's nothing wrong with the pattern at all. They're the Kaisla Socks. I can't remember who, I think it's Rachel Coopy is the pattern designer. And these are from the Lina 52 Weeks of Socks books. The first one. It's a pretty straightforward pattern with enough interest to kind of keep you engaged, I suppose. It's kind of cables and lace. And I'm doing them 2 at a time because that's what I do for socks. And this is in Queen of Pearls Citadel sock, which in hindsight, not a great yarn for socks because they are 100% BFL, which is fine for socks, but it's not like sturdy. I've made multiple pairs using this sock yarn, which again, why call it sock yarn if it's not actually like sturdy enough for socks? I think with some exceptions, most sock yarn should probably have nylon in it unless it has some other kind of strengthening fiber like mohair or various other alternatives, but this is just 100% wool. So they're cozy, but I've made a couple pairs and had to darn them. So I don't know, my brain is kind of like, well, you probably shouldn't use that for socks then, but also I'm like a good part of the way through them and I know how to mend socks, so like I'll probably just make them and then deal with mending them when it gets to that point. It's a nice pattern. I think they'd make a nice like sock to have because a lot of my socks are actually pretty crazy colors because I don't necessarily want to wear crazy variegated skeins and colors on my body like as a full sweater, but it's fun to have kind of crazy socks or stripy socks, but then also sometimes it's fun to have socks that are a little bit more toned down if you want them to kind of go with some of your more professional clothes or your, like, I don't know, more dressed up outfits, I suppose. So I think this will be a nice thing to have in my wardrobe. It just, I don't know, I started them and then kind of forgot they existed because they'd been in a basket forever. So again, I'm going to finish them. I don't know when. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a goal of, like, finish 2 WIPs before you can start another cast on. Like, that's probably a good goal to have until I pare some of this down, but also it's my hobby and it's meant to be for my enjoyment and there's no rules, so we'll see. But it probably would feel good to get some of these, like, a little bit more complete. So yeah, that is the Kaisla Socks. Next up, I have a project that I know hasn't been on the podcast. And it is a bit of an interesting one. Hopefully. I don't know. It looks like this. I'm calling it, like, my take on the Seaglass sweater. Probably you'll have seen the Seaglass sweater by Wool & Pine on Ravelry or on Instagram before. And it is 1x1 color work. It's meant to be a scrappy sweater. But the Wool & Pine version is a circular yoke, and it is also in DK. I have a lot of fingering weight or 4-ply weight scraps. For various reasons, I don't really know how I've got so many, but I do. And a lot of them are kind of in blues and greens. So I decided to kind of adapt the idea from the Seaglass sweater from the circular yoke into a raglan. So I'm kind of combining the Seaglass pattern and the pattern Ravello by Isabel Kramer together because I had used that pattern before on a different sweater and I knew I liked the fit. When I hold this up, I feel like it looks kind of small. And part of that might be the color work. Although 1x1 color work isn't overly tight, like it stretches pretty well. The majority of these yarns are like a superwash merino nylon, so it may stretch a little bit in blocking. It'll be interesting to see how this looks on camera because I feel like it looks alright, if a little bit stripy in odd places. I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to like it. I think I'll like it, and I think it'll be kind of like a cozy sweatshirt vibe. I think it'll also be good once I get the collar on to start seeing what it's going to look like, because I'm obviously pretty far on the body. I need to compare to the to like an existing sweater that I have to see how much longer I want to do it. But maybe only like 2 or 3 more inches before I start the ribbing, and the ribbing is going to be all in a dark blue, and I'm hoping that kind of helps bring it together a little bit, kind of like a navy blue. How I've been doing the color changes, I'm not 100% sure how the Seaglass pattern tells you to do it. I feel like they have a hat as well, and I think I downloaded their hat pattern, which you can get for free by signing up for their newsletter. And I think I downloaded that and didn't really like the suggestion. So what I've been doing is I change a yarn every row, but not both yarns. And the join that I'm using, I think it might be called a Russian join. I would need to look it up for certain, but I'll show you just what it looks like here. So basically what you do is you take the yarn and you loop them together like this. So here's the one I've already done, and here's the one I'm going to do, and then you weave this one in onto itself. So I'm just going to do that and then show you what that looks like. And what that means is you have no ends to weave in. You do have a doubled up length of yarn for a little bit, but I haven't found it to create too much bulk. It's not too bad. And I prefer that to whatever. I can't remember exactly what the pattern had said, but I know I looked at it and just thought it would make a super bulky seam like all in one spot, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I don't know if this will show up very well, but hopefully you can see that the top yarn is woven into itself and the bottom yarn is woven into itself. So there's a clean join where the colors change. And so what I've been doing is I will knit around with one color. No, so each color is getting used in 2 rounds. So one, and I've separated my yarns out into darks and lights, and then into blues and greens. So I knit like 1 round with dark blue and light green, and then I change the dark blue to a dark green, and I knit with 1 round with dark green and light green, and I'll change the light green to a light blue and knit around with dark green and light blue, and then I change back the dark green to a dark blue. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So it basically ends up in this kind of transition where it looks random-ish, I don't know, cohesive-ish. I think in hindsight I maybe wouldn't have used some of these variegated yarns that are really light, or the ones that have some that are a bit purpley, but it's not the end of the world, and it's a scrappy sweater, so hopefully from a distance, good enough. It's fun to work on. And 1x1 color work is really not difficult at all. It's pretty easy to do for me without looking for the most part. So I'm interested to see the final project. The reason that this doesn't get worked on quite as much is because I do have a lot of scrap yarn that I'm trying to use up. And so they're all kind of laying out in a rough order, because I'm trying also to not use the same yarn one right after each other. So yeah, the reason this hasn't been getting worked on as much is because there's so many balls of yarn to take around with me, and you only use each ball for 2 rows. So it means you just have to change colors like pretty frequently, which makes it a less good option for like traveling around or even like sitting on the couch. It's better if I'm just like at my desk or in one spot near where all those yarns are. Yeah. So that is the Seaglass / Ravello sweater, kind of made up my own version. Alright, last but not least, I don't think I've shared this before, and this is not something I'm in any rush to finish, but it is actually a crochet project. And this is the Battenberg Blanket, I believe is the pattern. I need to look up the author, the designer, but she does a lot of different crochet projects. And this is what I've put together so far. So you can tell it's going to take forever. But it's a really fun pattern, and it's another good way to use up, I guess, scraps, or mini skeins, or advent objects, although an advent calendar would not be enough for this. But it gets you started anyways. And yeah, it is basically these granny squares, although they have less holes in them. I think a traditional granny square would have holes on the sides as well as the corners, whereas this just has holes on the corners. So I feel like it looks a little bit neater, and I feel like using the 4-ply yarn also looks a bit neater. It's more to my taste. And one thing that I dislike about yarn blankets is that they can be really heavy, so whether that's knitted or crocheted. Whereas a 4-ply one is not going to be super heavy, and I'm not going to like get my toes stuck in the holes because they're pretty small holes. So I feel like it's just going to be more functional overall. And with this, so obviously I've only sewn this many together. I have also only made this many white squares. This pattern alternates a white square with a solid or colored square. So you need a lot of white squares as well. But I have this entire little pouch of colored squares, and they're really quick to do, maybe like 10-15 minutes per square, so they're a lot of fun, and they're fairly portable. I clearly went through like a phase of making a bunch and just haven't made enough white squares to continue adding to this, but they are a fun project to work on. So I might try and pull that back out. It'd be probably a good thing to be like, oh, I'll do 1 white and 1 colored square a day. Like that's very doable. Or even just 1 square a day. Like that would probably pretty quickly add up. I haven't gone to the effort of calculating how many I'm going to need. How many is here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 already. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of squares. Hundreds and hundreds. Depending on how big I want it to be. So that's definitely an ongoing project. But I do have some kind of advent swaps coming, so that is my intention for any mini skeins that I collect over time, is to use them for this. I'm mostly trying to use semi-solids and solids, maybe some tonals, but nothing that is too wild with the variegation. So yeah, that is that. I think that pretty much covers all of my projects. It turns out I'm only going to frog one of those things. No guarantees that I'm going to get back to any of the other ones anytime soon. And yeah, maybe 2 rows on Lucia, and maybe one crochet square a day. I don't know. That's like a pretty easy goal, perhaps. We'll see. But it's been fun to look back at them. Turns out I do like all the things I've started for the most part. I tend to choose patterns that I like and that are fun to work on. I just tend to choose too many of them because sometimes the fun part is starting and not finishing. Let me know if you relate. I'd love to hear any feedback that you have. Have you made any of these projects? What would you do in my scenario? Are you a monogamous knitter or crocheter or crafter, or do you tend to have lots of projects on the go as well? Like I said, I haven't actually included all the things that I've been working on more recently. So that was I think 9 projects, and I have 3 others at least. Nope, 4 others that are that I've worked on more recently, that I've been working on regularly, that I have yet to show, that I haven't included here. So that's probably a good 10 to 12 projects that I've got on the go right now. But you know what, they do bring me joy, and I started all of them for a reason, so I'm not really bothered. This is just how I am, and I've accepted it, and I don't let it stress me out. I hope you enjoyed this look back at my WIPs. If you enjoyed this episode, take a look back at some of the other episodes on my channel, and as always, I appreciate a like and subscribe, or a share with anyone that you think might enjoy this video. Thanks, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!